Nana, I am live now, okay? Hello everybody. Good afternoon. I trust you are well. So this week I had a conversation about flashcards as one of the revision techniques I wanted people to explore. As usual, I have been hounded by questions and interest, which is amazing. So I'm hoping that in this session I'll briefly run through what a good flashcard looks like, how to make one. But I also want to discuss target grades because this morning I shared a video from a few weeks ago about Fisher Family Trust targets. And Minister, could you hit that for me please so it's charging? Excellent, thank you. So I mentioned Fisher Family Trust. I talked about value added CVAs. Darlington, good morning. This is I Need Science. I Need Science is my teaching and learning channel. It is mainly for parents and students. Of course, at the moment it's exam season, so I'm focusing on parents and students who are in examination classes, but not necessarily just for them. Occasionally I throw things for the younger ones, but because my specialism is the bigger ones, you will find that I talk about the bigger ones much more frequently than the little ones. Unintended, but it is what it is. Can you share the video for me, please? Can you be patient with me for 2 minutes whilst I share to my usual networks? I know most people are not familiar with what happens on this page, so I tend to share to the main page and a few other places so people know we are on. If you happen to chance on this video, if you've not followed this page, it's a lot easier for me if you would follow the page. So going forward in the next few weeks, I just go live. Hi Darlington, hi Ahia, hi everybody, you are welcome. I want to talk techniques. Remember that I am still working on supporting parents to be more effective in supporting our kids to be successful learners. So we talked about flashcards. I've taken this from 2 of the kids I have, well, the only 2 kids I have. They have unique styles in making the flashcard. This is for my son, and this is for my daughter. It's worth saying that this is biology, so obviously the biology one will have more content, and hers are physics ones. So she has got the angle of incidence and the relationship between the angle of reflection. This is the law of reflection. What is the dashed line? So she's gone for the question and answer technique. Okay. It says, what is the dashed line on a ray diagram called? So the question is at the back. The answer is that it's the normal. That's the name. Hi, DJ Constalo. Hi. The speed of light in air. So this is quite a minimalistic approach. There is a question and there is an answer on the back. That's one way of doing the flashcards. Sometimes you ask yourself questions. So these are properties. There are 4 terms to describe the image in a plane mirror. So it gives you what it is, and then she brings it. It's upright, it's virtual, yeah. Equidistant is laterally inverted. She's written all those things here, so she knows those terms. These are for my daughter, she's in year 9. So obviously she's younger. Her exams are not as serious as these, funnily enough, are for my son, but he made them in year 8. These are his year 8 notes. He's used them and he's passed it on to his sister. And so I borrowed some to show you. I know one is in Ghana. One is enjoying in Ghana. You need to add that one. Chris Taylor, hi everybody. Good afternoon. My end, whatever the time is applicable where you are, I send you warm greetings. Wow, John Johnson, it's been ages. It's good to see you, my brother. My son is also using the question and answer technique, but as you can see, this is less minimalistic. This is actually more on the information side of things. So it's not just a question. It's the type of variation, and then he puts the information required, breaks it down, uses pictures, draws, and I like that variation. Just to make it interesting for himself, he actually draws, which I find very funny. He does funny diagrams, It's interesting, it's funny whilst he makes it, and he makes it memorable. Rasobe! Ras, good afternoon. Kwabe Charm. No problem. Come watch it later. Thank you for sharing. Very grateful. So he has the characters. That's one of the most unique things about him. This is him questioning something, wondering. He has a question. It entertains him, and it's fine for me because it makes it memorable for him. And then he has his own little acronym which helps him remember variation, and then he puts information on. I think that's adorable. These are ones on things like gas exchange, and you can see the key things is the diagram really. Oxygen goes from the lungs into the blood vessels, carbon dioxide goes, the arrows are important. These are questions that you are likely to see on exam papers, and he's got the important things around it. So there wasn't any question, it was just information. This is a different way of doing it. So this is the question and answer technique. There's a question on the back, the answer on the other side. If your kid makes one of these question and answer ones, you can take it from the kid and you can ask them the question, and you can look on the answer side just to double check that the kid does know the stuff. Very helpful. Sometimes you make these ones, this is more for the kid, the important things to know. He likes drawing because he's a bit like me. He likes pictorial representation, so you'll find that he's doing inhalation and exhalation. So he's got the diagrams. You can see what's happening with the diaphragm. Obviously, he knows what it is, so he's just flattened it out and it's gone up to a V in this one. It's adequate for him. Quite minimalistic. Those are biology ones. These are his physics ones. So let me show you the difference between the two kids and their styles over here. None is better than the other as long as it meets everybody's need. So this is the boy. He has the law of reflection. He's drawn the ray diagram. He's written all those things around it that he feels is important, he needs to know. And his sister has just done the law. The angle of reflection is equal to the angle of incidence, and she's got it over here. She's younger, so obviously the information she puts is less than what he does. But I want you to see the various different ways of doing things. When I said flashcards, I assumed a lot of us knew what it was. But the questions I got made me realize that most of us had no idea what it was. So this is what I mean by flashcards. Information taken from the textbooks and revision guides, condensed into simple, easy to memorize ones. Sometimes it only pulls the equation and a little bit of information of the conditions required for the equation to be applicable. Sometimes he does funny things for his own entertainment, so he says, don't do drugs, which is fine enough for me. Kofi, hi! I've missed you too. It's good to see you. Sometimes he does funny things because his brain works like mine. We do interesting things. He says, don't do drugs. That's not necessarily anything to do with the topic. It's just something he wants to say to himself. Something which is profound for him. Hi, Betty, is that you? Oh, Nana Kusia, hi, sis. I'm still working on how to help your kids. I am still working on how to support your kids, how to take an interest and help your kids to make these flashcards, because it's not something kids know automatically. It's a skill, and somebody has to help them work out which works for them. When you first start, you wouldn't know what kind of kid yours is. You would have to try a few. And then over time, you will work out if your kid is a minimalist or your kid needs to have the excess information, and you put it on whatever version works for them. All right? He likes going over with color. The color helps. It makes it less boring. Yeah, this is my son, and this is how he likes to do his things. This is Madame. This is how Madame likes to work hers. Madame does the question and answer. You can still see both of them do a bit of color going on. None of them is my style of doing things at all. My style is the bullet points, flow charts. I like to see things branching out so I can see relationships with them. But you've got to work out your kid and what's personal to the kid and what works. If your kid wants to draw, Kofi, be careful. Yaba, hi, good afternoon. If your kid wants to draw, and drawing these stupid characters enable the kid remember what he was actually learning when he drew the stupid characters, that in itself is not a problem. as long as they don't get distracted by the drawing, as long as they don't waste time just drawing. If the drawing actually does add value to the learning, then it's absolutely welcome. So those are flashcards. That's what I meant by revision flashcards. We make those revision flashcards. You need to buy the cards for your kid. If you can't be bothered, they can cut up exercise books. But these things are so cheap and so easily available in bookstores. It doesn't cost an arm or a leg. It's really cheap. You get it for the kid. It communicates to the kid that you are interested. You get them a few highlighters and some color. It's so amazing how we all learn differently. These two kids are mine. They've grown up together in the same environment. I can give them the same videos sometimes. They work from the same videos. I wanted to show you one of those videos. That's why I wanted to Mac. And then I got distracted and started broadcasting from my phone. But I will show you some of the videos I make. If you are the kind of parent who is able to make those videos, you can make it for the kid. If you don't know how to make the video, but you are competent enough to find those videos from YouTube, please knock yourself out. There's plenty available on YouTube. And if you can't find pre-made content, you can definitely ask professionals to make them for you, and you use it to help your kid revise. So I have the videos made, and then whatever I want. So I was telling you guys about making my children work even when I'm not at home. I would WhatsApp them the videos I want them to watch. They will watch the videos, make notes, make revision flashcards, answer questions. Sometimes I'd even give them quizzes, even in my absence. So it allows me to focus what they do. Yeah, but because some of us were never taught these things. Some of us never had that opportunity of somebody showing you how revision is done. For some of us, it's new. And yeah, gray hair or not, if we need to learn, then we need to learn. I want to show you an example of a video. Okay, so this is about the solutions unit. Solutions, what I'm going to do is not do your homework for you. I'm going to explain the unit. Most of the answers will be on the explanation I'm giving you. Please listen. And once you've listened to what I'm doing, you should be able to answer the questions. And then if you're not clear about things, then I will help. Remember that what I'm doing is supporting and helping you to do your work, not doing the work for you. Okay. So this is me working with a mom and her child. They get homework. They send me the homework. I have a look at the homework. I refuse to do the homework. And then I'll make a video on the topic from which the homework is drawn, so that the child understands. So Yaba asked me a question. You have mind maps at all? So I will show you my minimalistic way of doing mind maps, and it's funny. No, that's an application I use. That was a video I actually recorded. So for example, I wanted to tell kids about different substances. So I will put substances in the middle, substances, and I'll ask myself, bonds, no bonds. So I have different substances, different atoms. Let's make it that way so it's technically correct. Different atoms, so things that contain different atoms. They might have different atoms and there will be bonds holding them together or no bonds holding them together. If there are no bonds, then we call it a mixture. If there are bonds, it is a compound. If it's a mixture, we might have homogeneous. We might have heterogeneous. And then I will write the definitions of each one underneath it. And that's me done on my mind map. My mind map is mainly a flow chart. It's a simple sequential way of working through what's a difficult concept. One kid may write the whole flashcard showing that if something has bonds and it has different atoms, it will be a compound. A compound is made up of different atoms joined together by bonds. A mixture would be made up of different atoms but not joined together. Some kids will write a whole page of bullet points. I am minimalistic. I don't want to see any long stories. I just want to see the pattern. So for me, in my head, bonds, no bonds allows me to see the distinction. Homogeneous, heterogeneous, and I would just write the definitions underneath it. Guys, 1 minute. 1 minute. Oh, goodness. Minister. 1 second. No, they haven't. 1 second. Sorry. Apologies. Let me have a look. Where? No, there's a bit of a scratch, but no cut. All right. Sorry about that. I had to run, go check something. So I'm back. The other thing people have asked me about a lot is target grades. And yeah, Kofi, I don't speak any other language apart from English on this one because it's a parental group. It is for all manner of people. So on this page, you will have to forgive me. It is 100% English medium. I could say, hi. I'm still talking education. I'm still talking supporting children. But it's difficult to support your kid when you don't know what you are actually working towards. If we're, hi, you're welcome, good afternoon. And that's why in England and in most places, we do have target grades. The target grade gives a kid something to aim for. It allows the schools, the teachers, and the people who review learning a way of evaluating progress. And those of you who understand Tree will have to join me on the Amamansin page, and I will try very hard to make extra time to come and explain. Kofi, be careful. Get a dictionary by your side. I'm sure you'll be fine. Hello, Ako. Hello. The principle of the target grade doesn't mean that it's the only thing possible, but it's a point to aim for. Obviously, if your target grade is not the highest, there is always the possibility of setting yourself a little bit higher, aiming for a little bit higher, but based on how you've performed in your Key Stage 2 tests, we give you an evaluation of where we think you should be, typically at the end of Key Stage 3 and at the end of Key Stage 4 and 5 throughout your education. The problem becomes that for some kids, the minute you tell them this is your target grade, the kid begins to believe that that's the only thing they should do. For school, that's what they are aiming for. And that's the only discussion, the rhetoric you will hear. It is up to you, the parent. Minister, we are not going to school till Wednesday. Relax. Chill. If your kid doesn't have anybody else discussing with them the possibility of overachieving, of pushing boundaries, of aiming a little bit higher, they just get sucked into the mediocrity of school. In school, people have targets. As long as they get to the minimum targets, they are done. Performance-linked pay will be activated for them. And for them, overachieving with your kid does not really hold any particular benefit. It's good if your kid can overachieve, but as long as they hit the target grade, they are fine. So you find schools would be working towards the target grade. They will maintain just the target grade and might not push themselves to achieve anything beyond the target grade. That aiming higher job doesn't fall to school. That's actually a parental thing. It is you who should have that conversation with your kid and say, you used to argue with the teachers about this target malarkey, because if I don't take... Oh, but that once they get there, they will leave them. Absolutely. It's up to you, the parent, to keep pushing boundaries with both your child and the school in order to get that overachievement conversation started. You need to tell your kid you want to aim higher. You need to push your kid and support your kid to actually demonstrate that you are aiming higher. You will have to hit at least the minimum target grade quite early on in the school year, and then go to school and have a conversation. Look, in term 1, the kid has hit his target. That target grade is no longer good enough. No longer good enough. There is no way my kid is going to sit in your class for 2 more terms with the same target grade he hit in September. What is the new target grade? And sometimes you can actually push schools. You can have this conversation frequently enough that they would physically change your target grade for you. They can't change it. It can be changed. It's not written in stone. Most schools don't like to do it. They would only do it with hardcore concrete evidence. And the best concrete evidence is for your kid to hit that target grade consistently very early on. Then that argument is simple. I'm sorry. It's an end of year target. My kid has had it in September. What happens next? And yeah, it's a logical place school. Once they've seen that the kid has hit it consistently in the first 3 assessments, it means that that target grade was on an underestimate of what the kid can do. So they will have to revise target grades. And when they revise target grades, the good thing is usually in settings, if your kid was lower down the sets, the revision of the target grade might also be coupled with movement to a higher set. Usually movement to a higher set means that they are likely to meet somebody who is a technical specialist teaching that subject at the top end. Those teachers are more inspirational, those teachers are more exciting, those teachers are more effective in helping your kid understand. And if your kid encounters somebody who is technically more able, somebody who can explain better, somebody who can motivate better, it will have a positive impact on your kid's attitude and future achievement. So it's an upward trajectory. But you see, the excellent schools need to keep the grades high, so they push them. Otherwise, you have to do it yourself. But that's the thing. The excellent schools maintain high, and even in the rubbish schools, the top sets still maintain higher standards. So depending on which set you are in, depending on who's teaching that set, depending on the mentality of the teacher and the students in that set, everybody might aim. So I have had classes where kids are targeted a C. But they come to my class and we just have that conversation. This nonsense is only written on paper. It is not applicable in this top set class. In this top set class, we are only going to work towards the AA star grade, and the kids are like, yeah. So you will find on my books, their target grade is a C, and I always get the kids to physically write on their exercise book, aspirational target A star. Aspirational means it is not their real target officially, but that's what we're working towards, aspirational target. And from that point onwards, those kids mentally shift from wanting to be a C candidate and understand that there is no C in my class. They understand that we are not working towards a C. We are working towards something better. I explain to kids the way Fisher Family Trust calculates target grades and the fact that some of it is not even personal to them. And then we set our aspirational targets, and that's what we work with. And funnily enough, almost every kid hits those aspirational targets for me. It's a negotiable target. We talk about it and then we decide what we're going to do. And I get the kids to commit to it and we work towards it, and it's done. If you have a crazy person like me teaching your kid who will physically write an aspirational target on their exercise book, good for you. You are lucky. It's not part of my job, really. My job would have been to work for the C. If you don't meet people like that who would get your kid to write that aspirational target, then that conversation falls to you, the parent, to have at home. What's your target grade in biology? Your kid will say D. Well, you do know a D is a fail, right? And your kid is like, the teacher didn't say it's a fail. Yep. Let's have a look at sixth form entry requirements. Can you see any D's? And your kid is like, no. Okay. So if sixth forms are not accepting a D, then your D target grade is not going to get you in a sixth form. And the kid is like, ooh, yes. Right, what's the minimum requirement for sixth forms? And they will tell you a B. Well, we are targeted a D. It will not get us where we want. What people want is a B, so aspirational target is a B. Realistically, that's the only option we have. Kofi, stop it. You are tickling me. Stop it already. I will have that conversation on the main channel in the local lingua at some point. but you do speak enough English. It's a bad habit all of us have. We don't want to speak English because it's not comfortable. Unfortunately, we're going to have to learn to include more people. This is not a group-specific topic. It's a topic I would like anybody and everybody who has kids abroad to be able to benefit from. So it works best if we do it in English. In the medium, everybody will understand. The difference is so clear. You have a child who is an A-star student, and you hardly get teachers who tell you, listen, what teachers do in class, you have to remember, for most people, teaching is a job. They are given a job. They are given a set criteria to be successful. You have to explain this to your 16 and 14-year-old yourself. Thank you. You will do that job most of the time. And that's what I'm trying to get parents to understand. Listen. Really, if any teacher does it for you, that's going above and beyond what we do. It is not part of our requirements. My requirement says that I read your kid's target grade from the document which has been given to me by school, and I will read it out. C, B, D, C, B, D, A, C, B, done. From that point onwards, that's my target set. As long as I get your kid to that D, I have still reached the target he was set. I am still on course for my promotions and everything else. And there's no extra need to push your kid beyond. If I am a bit like me, if I'm a bit weird and I'm so competitive, then I might do a little bit on top of it because I want to. But it's not a requirement. It's not part of my job, really. It's an extra I am doing for the kids. Nobody can turn around and say that I've not changed your kid's target grade and it's my fault. It's not. If you want your kid to be aspirational, be prepared that you will lead your kid to understand why they need to be aspirational. I've shown you one technique. Open any sixth form college. Have a conversation with the kid and ask the kid, so which sixth form would you like to go to? They'll give you a few names because kids do have those things in mind already. And the subjects you're looking to do, these are the entry requirements. So your target grade alone is not going to get you where we want to be. And the kid will realize, oops, no, it's not. And we really want to do this course, right? And the kid is like, yep, okay. If we need to do this course, and this is what the course needs, and this is what you've been targeted, then the target grade needs to be upscaled a little bit. And the kid would realize that you are not crazy. What you are actually asking for makes sense. It's logical because you've explained it to him. You've taken him on that journey. So we need to be aiming for a B, and the kid will realize why you need to aim for a B. Maybe even better. At that point, you have agreement between you and the kid. You have understanding and appreciation of why you need to do what you're doing. And it makes it so you go and challenge anyways. You should. Goodness, you should. If nobody's challenging you, who doesn't want to make your life relaxed? I've had my kids' target grades amended quite a few times. I have advised many parents to go to school and have target grades amended because whether you know it or not, target grades set people's mentalities. It sets the teacher's mentality and expectation, and it sets your kids' mentality and expectation too. When people understand that they are only targeted a D, the effort they put in is never the same as people pushing for an A-star. So sometimes you need to physically get those target grades changed in order to push teachers to extend further than average, in order to guide your kid towards better. Target grades have to be shifted sometimes when there is enough argument for it. You and your kid will have to understand the strategy for changing target grades. You will have to hit the baseline target grade quite early. And then you have a discussion. My child has already overachieved it. It is no longer fit for purpose. That's the easiest way to get schools to upscale your target grade. Oh, anyway, hi. It's wrong in your opinion, and yeah, but it probably is wrong, but I'm trying to explain to you from the professional's point of view as well. We've been given a set. Nobody is going to request for a higher set so that we are likely to fail. No way. We all like to have reasonable expectations so that we are likely to hit it, so that our performance-linked pay will be protected because we are aimed to do a job to get paid. Once somebody's got your kid to where they need to get your kid to remain being paid at a particular level, they really don't owe you any extra. Anything else they do is a bonus. Anything extra is a lucky bonus. If you want it to be one of the typical things that happen in class and you want the teacher to be working and pushing your kid to a B, then it is better that you work very quickly with school and have that target grade officially changed to a B, so that the bar is physically lifted and it's clearly visible to the teacher and your child that we are no longer working towards a D. The target has shifted and it is officially a B. When the teacher knows that the kid has to get a B, the teacher will guide the kid with everything they have to push for a B, because the teacher would not want to risk his or her performance linkage pay because your kid didn't pass. They will force your kid to get there. They will drag him, kicking sometimes. They will push him. They will nudge him because they do need the kid to get to that target grade to protect themselves. Who cares how they get your kid there? If this simple thing allows people to do more for your kid, to get to your kid to better outcomes, then why not? Why ever not? So Yaba says it's wrong in her opinion, because once my child starts, you go and speak to them and tell them you have my precious asset, so please, you will be hearing from me regularly. And that's how I deal with people who teach my kids as well. We will be in contact with each other regularly. I am your partner in this project. What you have, as you describe, is my most precious asset, whose future is being determined by the interactions with you. You and I don't need to be friends. You and I don't need to be pally-pally in any way. You and I are partners in getting my child where they should get the best possible outcomes. And I am going to stand by you. I'm going to work with you. I'm going to push us all. I am going to cheerlead everybody until we get to that point. And when you simply say that to a teacher, it tells them that you understand your job. And because you understand your job and you are off to do it, once you've raised the bar to that point, the teacher would usually match you too in their performance and delivery. So today I just wanted to talk about target grades. I want people to understand target grades are not written in stone. They can be changed. Schools don't like changing them because it's inconvenient, but it can be changed. If you have enough evidence and you take it to school and you are adamant about it, eventually they will change things to suit you. But you and your child will have to work early on to demonstrate that you've already achieved the lower end target grade. Nobody, I repeat, nobody will change your kid's target grade if they cannot even reach the lower estimate. Nobody. It's about to upscale it and make it less likely for the child to achieve the baseline. You will have to achieve it first, overachieve it if you can, and force the argument of adjusting your target grades. Because you sometimes have to go to the head and eventually it's down. Of course, you will have to go have some words with people every now and again. You will have to stand your ground every now and again. You will need to be adamant about things sometimes. You need people to know that you understand what's going on and you are not going to accept any mediocrity for your kid. You are not asking for anything undeserved. You are asking for exactly what your kid deserves because you have numbers and you have evidence to prove that where they've pegged your kid is below expectation. That's enough, usually. That's enough. But why do you have to step in before you move the target, which they know can be moved and the child's potential can be challenged? Yaba, let me break this down simply for you. My performance in that classroom is evaluated by your kid's target grade. Okay? If I'm able to go back to my head teacher and say 100% of the kids in my classroom have achieved their target grades or better, that's me done for that year. Performance management almost done, ticked. I am an effective teacher. I have got all the kids where I was expected to get them. I'm a good teacher. If all the kids are at a D and I get them all to a D, I can still say that. If all the kids are at an A star and I get them to an A star, I will still only say that 100% of the kids have reached their target. So why will I want their target grades to be at an A star? So that if one kid does not get to an A star, my target has not been met. So no, I am not in a hurry to raise that target beyond what is reasonable. And sometimes if I have any doubts that your kid might not get an A star, I will fight it till tomorrow, because my pay is linked to the achievement of the baseline target. So I will not be in a hurry to upscale anything which might be detrimental to me. Just as it is for me, is also the school's target. We will not create any stupid targets which will become a rod for my back later when your kid does not get there. You will need to bring some serious argument to the table to force us to acknowledge that your kid is likely to get an A star, so we will push him there. Is that how it is in a private school? Private schools are slightly different. Not too different, because they also do need to be able to meet target grades. Otherwise, it probably is more important to them because it's paid. Kids come there and kids get their target grades, yes. If kids come there and they're targeted an A star and they walk off with a B, your parents will be furious. They will tell people about it. Reputation will drop. They will struggle to get people. So I suppose it's even more important for them to get it right. Even more important for them to get it right. Those of us in public school, we are worried about our pay, really. Reputation is important, personally. But we will still get the same amount of money next year from the government, regardless of performance, generally. If we do it consistently below par for a while, then there will be ramifications. But if we miss it just 1 year and we still have the same number of kids in school, the government will give us the same amount of money and resources to continue working. So probably more important for people in private schools to make sure. So private schools are notorious for setting very low target grades. And they can turn around and say that kids outperformed themselves 200%, and make a statement like that, which supports recruitment. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat what I've done before. I'm just going to summarize it quick as I can. In England, targeting is done by a charity, and it's called Fisher Family Trust, FFT. And if you go to the Fisher Family Trust target grade calculation, it has many dimensions. It takes into consideration parental education backgrounds. A professor's daughter is likely to have access a certain amount of resources, a certain amount of encouragement, a certain expertise from parents, understanding of the system, and the chances are that this professor's kid might be more successful than Ama's kid, clueless Ama's kid. Ama who lives in the worst area. Ama who has no place for my kid to study. Ama who can't afford to buy revision guides and study material for my kid. My kid is going to have it more difficult to get to a certain standard in comparison to the professor's kid. So Fisher Family Trust takes all those things into consideration, and it would expect that the professor's kid would peak at a B, and Ama's kid would peak at a D. The understanding is that the professor's kid will have more resources at their disposal, so all things being equal, that kid of an average intelligence should be able to outperform me any day. Except that we create extenuating circumstances. Nano Faridako, hello bro, you're welcome. So those things are taken in consideration. In England, where you live, the postcode lottery influences the calculation of your kid's target grade. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people to get the hell out of areas and go live in other places where everybody's expectations are higher. And so people understand that because the bar is raised high for everybody, your kid is also likely to be pushed a little bit further because of where they live. If all the kids in the area are meeting to smoke, and they are meeting to get stoned, and studying is not high on the priority, it's difficult. It's not right. There's many things in this life which are not right, but that's how life works. The logic of it also does make sense, even within the injustice of it. Think of it. I go to many places and I teach many kids. And actually, having done that for a while, I will tell you, there are some places that everything the kid needs is made available. And one of the most simple things is the learning space. For some kids, the dining table is the only place they can learn. If your house is noisy, if you have 15 other kids in that house, or it's a communal area, everybody screaming and shouting, and your poor kid wants to learn, but there is absolutely no peace to focus and learn, regardless of your kid's interest, it is still going to be difficult to get to a certain point because there's too much distractions around, too many distractions. You go to a place and they have a den. The den has soundproofing. When the kid enters this den and you close the door, they have absolutely no other distractions. When a kid wills to study in that environment, that kid is going to have the peace to be able to do what he wants to do. There will be no screaming siblings, no kokonsa to stop and listen to, nothing else distracting. That kid is more likely to remain focused. That's the truth of this earth. That's how this life works. So when you think of it at first, it sounds unfair. It doesn't sound right, but it is also quite factual. If you live in a place where education is not important, certain investments will not be made. Textbooks and resources you need might not be provided routinely. When you come from an environment where education is everything, then everything you need will be made available to you. And all things being equal, when you have all the resources available to you, you are more likely to perform better. Do you guys understand? So on one aspect of it, it's unfair. But when you remove that knee-jerk response and you think about it logically, the more you have, the more you can achieve. That's the typical thing with this life. And that is not too unfair when you think about it. The kids your kids hang out with will determine a lot about the attitude with which your kids will attempt things. If everybody is indoors revising, your kid will have nobody to mess about with. So your kid will be back indoors. And at some point will do some revision. If everybody in your kid's school is oriented towards learning, your kid does not want to be the odd one out. Your kid will reorient towards learning. If everybody is doing drugs, everybody is doing other things behind other people's houses, at some point your very good kid might be drawn into that and they might be derailed a little bit, so the outcomes will dip. The best thing you can give a kid is a chance of decent education, not the house you build in Ghana. Thank you, Nana. Thank you. So, for example, I was talking to Minister about, this is our living room bookshelf. This really doesn't belong to anybody. This is a general one. Anybody can reach out for any book and read, all right? But there's a lot of textbooks, there's a lot of revision guides, there's a lot of fiction books, there's a lot of things available. So any kid who lives here and wants to study, all you have to do is reach out to that and you will have enough. And each kid has probably more of their own books in their rooms. This is the general bookshelf. If you live in a place like that, where I would come home, when was, I think last week, wasn't it? I brought them books. Last week, yeah. I will bring books home. Those are their presents. And I will start reading myself. And I will start working. So even if my kids are lazy naturally, just watching me, because I've made materials available, because I'm interested, and because I'm doing it myself, when I'm sat here reading, they have no other alternative than to pick a book too, and we read, and we all become less ignorant. When you grow up in an environment like that, learning is difficult. Learning is difficult anyway, but learning is different from when you have to hide from your parents to learn. Do you know that in some households, a kid has to avoid the parents in order to be able to read? I know children who can only read when they lock themselves in the toilet. I know children whose houses are so noisy that even when I go to tutor them, I end up tutoring them in my car. And sometimes the kid and I will quietly leave the house, go sit in my car, teach this kid, and the parents don't even realize that I have taken the kid out of the house. It's impossible for me, the adult, to concentrate. It's too noisy. The screaming, the shouting is just too much for me. that I'll say to the kid discreetly, sorry love, can't do this. Let's go outside to the car. How can you compare children who have the peace to revise and the kids who have to hide to revise? They practice what they see. If well, you are absolutely bang on the money, right? They do as you do, not as you say. There have been times when I've sat here and I've picked a book and I'm busy reading, and yet the kids would have liked to watch television, but they look at it and we all read. It is so true, so true. Spend your last penny on your child's education and get involved, and believe you will reap the benefits one day. As for that, you can testify, and so can I. I am a product of that belief. I am a product of a mom who would give me everything through her nose. Even when I haven't got money to give my mom, the fact that I'm not going back to her to disturb her, to take from her pension, is enough of a gift for her. But in most cases, I'm actually capable of augmenting, of topping up what she would have had in her pensions anyway. It's a worthy investment. It is a gift to the kids, and it can be a gift to you. We have to be very careful in the way we invest in our kids. The houses we are building for the kids will be very little value to them because the styles will change. The locations we are building in might not even have any interest for the kids. The kid is very unlikely to go to your village, but you want to build it in your village so people know that you've lived a good life. What's the point? What's the point if it's done at the expense of your kids' education? Be clear, education is not cheap. Minister, could you pass me that purple book, the revision guide? No, the one at the bottom, the purple one. All right. So this is a chemistry revision guide. This is £10.99, £11. 11. You will buy it for physics, you buy it for chemistry, for biology, English, and in English you might buy the language and you might buy the literature. You will buy it for math, you will buy it for history, you will buy it for geography, you will buy it for what else? Language, so Spanish or French. If you buy 10 of these books, yeah, at £11, and you buy 10 of them, that could buy a few good shoes. But that's not just it. When you finish buying the revision guides, you might also buy exam papers. Mister, have you seen those brown? Yeah, on the top shelf. Can I have that one and the white one as well, please? You don't just buy those. You are not done. You are not done. You will also buy workbooks. Workbooks. So there's the revision guide and there's the workbook. The revision guide has information. The workbook has questions. So you can test and see if the kid is actually taking on the information. The revision guide, £11. The workbook, £6. You are at £17, right? For one subject. You are still not done. Not done at all. Look in here. You have exam packs. I can't see if the price is on this one. I can't remember. So look, that was the English language workbook. This is the English language unit 1 exam paper pack. You will buy it for English language. This is the 9-to-1 course exam paper pack. And if you open it, you can see the questions. You can see how much time a kid can have. You have the material. So the kid is basically getting a free experience of what the exam might be when you buy this pack for your kid. Yes. So per subject, you might end up spending 40 to 50 quid per subject, and your kid is probably doing 10 of them a year. It is not cheap. Yes, you have bought a textbook. A textbook might be another 15 to 20 pounds. So sometimes you will buy a textbook just whilst your kid is looking for reference material. To condense the textbook, you will get a revision guide. After the revision guide, you will buy a workbook. Those are just formative work. And when you finish with those things, you will get them summative exam style papers like that one, the examination pack, plus the answer keys. And it is not cheap. It is not cheap. And that's the one thing most Ghanaians don't understand. Most Africans don't see to understand about supporting your kids. Most people have learned about the textbooks. They will buy the textbook. It's good. You're not done. A lot of people now know about the revision guides, and they will buy it and think they are done. Still, you are not done. You need to buy the complementary workbooks. And after the complementary workbooks, you need to find them, the examination packs. After you've bought the examination packs, you will have to take them to the website and get the latest official exams. When they finish the exam, you will need the mark scheme for them to check. After that, there is the examiner's report. And that is the one thing that most Ghanaians, almost 100% of Ghanaians I speak to, do not know about. A lot have heard about the exam paper and the mark scheme, and it's good. Past questions are good, blah, 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 blah. But that's not the only thing. When you finish working through the mark scheme and the question, you also need to go and get the examiner's report. The chief examiner's report is actually a compilation of everybody's feedback. So when I mark, I will give them, children were not good at this question, children did not pay attention, children did not seem to realize what the command word wants, children were making mistakes in putting units in, blah, blah, blah. And everybody who marks feedback will be collated and it will be put into the chief examiner's report. It tells your kid the things that will cost them some marks. It explains to your kid the things that will make the difference between the top grade and the mediocre grade. But also, whatever kids did not do well this exam season, you can be pretty well sure that it will be examined quite heavily in the big questions next series. So I can confidently tell you that in the GCSE physics paper, this summer 2020 is going to have a huge question on terminal velocity. I can tell you that. Why? Because for the last 2 exam seasons, the kids have really bombed out. They really couldn't answer the question. It means that schools are still not in control of that topic, and so it will be examined again. You don't need me to come have these conversations. You and your child need to go and read those things and need to work them out yourself. Man, for hustle, I'm telling you, Sam, we have very, very serious work to do. Unfortunately, most of us just don't have any idea. Hi, Ajua. I started this, I know new people have joined, so let me just run through. I'm still talking through what to do to help your kid. So we've been through the fact that you buy textbooks. Yes, you do need textbooks, especially for the core subjects. That's where your reference information is held. But the textbook is big, it's intimidating. So you might get a revision guide to help your kid condense things in a more accessible fashion. And then there are the workbooks. The workbooks contain practice questions, formative style questions, not necessarily exam style questions, but they tease out the fact that your kid has acquired the knowledge or not. That's just to test knowledge and understanding. But the exams are not just knowledge and understanding questions. We do have application questions. So after the workbook, you will get your kid past paper questions or exam packs. In the exam packs, you will have the question, the reference material, you will have the mark scheme. That's all good. But on top of all these things, you need to go back to the exam board website. Good afternoon. You need to go back to the exam board website and download the latest chief examiner's report. If your kid doesn't have one and your kid is about to write an exam, that is a tragedy. It really is a tragedy waiting. It's a problem. You want your kid to know what the examiner said about last year's candidates and to fix the problems highlighted about last year's candidates and to improve whatever was suggested from last year's candidates, because those things will heavily be tested in his exams. Blessings to you, my lovely sister. It's really good to see you. But let me just recap a little bit because new people have joined in. I was showing you different ways of making flashcards. So these flashcards are from the 2 kits I have. You will not realize that those 2 kits are related, but they are siblings. 2 years between them, growing up in the same environment, but they are 2 personalities. Things work differently for them. My daughter, she does the question and answer style. So what is the dashed line on a ray diagram called? Question. And on the other side tells you the name. So when your kid makes one of these, you can just take it off them. And then you look at the question, read the question, and ask the kid to answer. You have the answer here so you can check. It says, if the light rays are brought to a focus and the image may be made visible on the screen, what type of image is this? And it tells you on the other side, it's a real image. So you can take this and ask your kid, what's a real image? Or you can read the question and ask them to give you the answer. So once your kid has this made, even if you know nothing about the subject, you can take this from the kid. And you can help the kid by asking them questions, empowering with them to help them memorize things and to acquire the knowledge they should have. That's my daughter, very minimalistic. The question, the answer. The question, the answer. That style works for some people. My son, colorful character, that is my son. Doesn't just want to do question and answers. And sometimes he draws. He draws for his entertainment. It's funny. But it reminds him of what he was doing when he sees that image. Sometimes it's a joke he makes. He talks about something. So for example, he's drawn a dark-skinned boy, more melanin. A light-skinned boy, less melanin. So this is a black boy and a white boy. And he's talking about variation, by the way, but that was his example. It works for him. It's memorable. You will find that his flashcards are not as minimalistic as his sister's. That's his personal style. That's fine. I suppose it's also to do with the fact that he's a bit older. So the content he needs a little bit more. But these are from year 8, really. These are his year 8 flashcards. These are his year 9 flashcards. Still reflective of the personality. And I made one. Mine is, again, nothing like any of this. Mine tends to be a flow diagram, a flow chart, like my daughter. Very minimalistic, not a lot of things. But I like to use dichotomy so I can see differences in things. I can see where things branch off. That's what I would make. Sometimes mine will have a joke which reminds me of the content I should know. And that's fine. You need to work out a style. You will need to try a few things with the kid before you finally work out what style works, and then you go. So if your child doesn't like reading, how will you advise them to learn? Because as we are saying, people in general learn differently. If your kid is growing up now and doesn't like reading, your kid has no problem. There are audiobooks, there are videos, there are animations. There are so many different things a kid can do now to learn. There are podcasts, there are vodcasts, there are so many things. There is absolutely no need for your kid to sit with a textbook in the 21st century. No need. So I had a recording that I had made for a kid. This is me making a lesson for somebody. And yeah, I will let you have a look. On the app, you can see everything I write and you can hear everything I say. Yeah. Okay, so this is about the solutions unit. Solutions, what I'm going to do is not do your homework for you. I'm going to explain the unit. Most of the answers will be on the explanation I'm giving you. Please listen. And once you've listened to what I'm doing, you should be able to look and solve it. Let's give you a practical example. A practical example would be dissolving salt in water. Dissolving salt in water. Hey, Adam. Hello, sis. We'll have a beaker and we will pour some water in the beaker. Look. This is a beaker. These things were not possible when we grew up. We had to use the textbook thing. Water. But for these guys, not necessary. Solvent. And then we have our spoon. And on the spoon, we have the salt. The salt is our solute. When we pour it in, and then we have the water and the salt, we have a salt
also view.
Oh, yes, sis. It's been ages. Poverty keeps me at bay. I hope everybody's well. It's good to see you. So this resource, for example, for one child who is visual, they might watch the video. For another kid who is audio, one who is auditory, they would not bother looking at the screen. They would just put their headphones in and just listen. For some of us, we are kinesthetic, so we've got to pause and we've got to draw, we've got to shade. There are so many different things. There are three main types of learners. You have kids who are visual. It doesn't matter what you say to them. They have to see it. And when they see it, their needs are met. You have auditory learners, the ones who can happily listen. And most teaching and learning in class is done hoping that all kids are auditory, and it's about 20% of the kids who are auditory. The ones who are likely to read from a textbook, even less. The kinesthetic ones, like me, see, he's pointing. Most of us are like that. You've got to do, you've got to touch, you've got to feel, you've got to hear. You need multiple stimulation, and for that reason, we have so many multimedia lessons available now. You, again, need to know your kid. You need to find what works for your kid. If your kid is auditory, a podcast is enough. If your kid is visual, you need to give them a vodcast. They've got to see. Sometimes it goes beyond. So I am about to show you a reading scheme, which is quite kinesthetic in its way. I still advise parents to make sure that they are involved in what the kids are doing, that you are learning what your kids are learning. It takes you both on a journey. It allows you to understand what the kids' needs are so you can meet it more adequately. So she says another thing a teacher once said is, if your child doesn't like reading, let them read newspapers because the articles are very short and it's different authors, so a variety of vocabulary. Yeah, you could also find time and read with them. Thank you, that's the thing, Nana Puku. I read what my kids read. I know the authors they read. Mom recommends the books. Mom knows what they read, and then they tell me what they like. So when they read, they have two categories of books. They have books that they request, and then they have mom recommends. And even when they request a book, I've got to go read up about the author. Sometimes I actually go and research the title. I need to know the kind of books I am paying for to bring to my home. I need to understand whether the text is suitable or not. You will need to take that interest. You will need to know. You will need to know. You need to find out what they are reading and make it interesting. You buy. And I'm about to show you that very point, Nana Puku. We need to advise our kids that these gadgets can be a positive thing and they can use it for learning. Absolutely. You work in accounts, and most of your complicated formulas you use, you learn from YouTube. Even your peers are shocked. There you go. There you go, Yaba. The finding out who their kids are is the problem in our community. Thank you, Awu. Let me get you a reading scheme and let me show you what other people do to help their kids read. It's not every kid who's going to read Goldilocks and the Three Bears. For some of us, it's boring. You will need to find your kids' interests. So Adom, I can see you are still on. I can see this son of ours. The first son is not going to be one who will read Goldilocks and the Three Bears because his personality does not suit Goldilocks and the Three Bears. But I'm about to show you a book. Those kind of kinesthetic kids, there are alternative books for kids like that to read, regardless of how young they may be or how old they may be. So this is an Oxford Treetops book. This is a history-geared reading book. It's a level 2 book, but makes very little difference. It's about the Tower of London, and it teaches the history of the Tower of London. Accurate history of the Tower of London, but it is not done as your typical reading textbook. Look, there's a bit of text. It does a few animations. So the kind of kid who is text lazy will still read this because it's actually set in context. They can see people, the layout of the castle is given, and then the information is actually put around the picture. It puts it in context for the kid. The kid can actually imagine what's going on. They are still learning the history, but they are learning it in a very kinesthetic way, using a reading book. The choice of book make the difference between whether it's suitable for a child or not. I might still go out and buy a textbook about the Tower of London, but there are some kids who would never read it because the style just doesn't work. But look, in here, having read it, they've been given famous prisoners. And it tells them some stuff about some famous prisoners. Most kids will be interested, but they are still learning about the Tower of London. The nasty stuff. Listen to the title. Most kids would like to know what the nasty stuff is. So that page gives them more information, but we are still reading about the Tower of London. Getting the Chop. Nice title. So you have subtitles within the book. This is the kind of book you need. Yes, Efua. Most of our Ghanaian kids are like this. The kind of book you choose determines whether your kid appreciates reading or not. Please don't give your boys books that your girls read. The personalities are different. Please don't give your hyperactive kid the book that a docile kid would read. It just doesn't work. You will put your son off reading. He will think reading is boring. Reading is not boring. The type of book you gave him was wrong. The kind of book you gave him was wrong. Look. So we finished reading Getting the Chop. And then we come to Making the Mark. This is the most clever thing about this series of books, because it teaches the kids about making a mark. It's a kinesthetic activity. It talks about Thomas Cooper, and it explains how to make a stamp, how to create a mark. If I was reading it with my kid, we may actually design and make a mark, all as part of reading this book. We are still reading the book. We are still learning the history, but we are doing stuff, making money. So we are reading things about history. We are learning boring stuff. It talks about 1666, and it talks about the fire. It talks about a lot of things that you will read. It has pictures, and then it takes you to the zoo and things that are related but not very related, things that take kids' imagination out of this world, takes them to people living in the tower. We are still reading about the Tower of London, and when you finish, it has a glossary. But the very special thing about these books is that it gives you things to do before reading, during reading, and after reading. So you can tell the kid the before reading activities help to set the context and to get interest from the kid. During the reading helps you to focus the kid and keep an interest. After the reading helps you to check that the things you wanted to be picked up in the reading has been done. Reading is not just giving a book to a kid. Reading is a technical skill, by the way. There's a whole lot of things. Sports is fun. You might choose to read this book with a kid who is not active. By the time they finish reading the Kelly Holmes story, they would have learned quite a few things about sports being fun. It would teach them about fortitude, mental fortitude, determination, rising above the odds. There's a whole lot of things hidden in these books. There are many types of books. There are some about specific places. There are some, this is the Frankenstein book. This is a level 17 book. Again, so we've gone from the lower levels, and look, even with the level 17 books, it actually does have some illustrations. It still has things you do before reading, things you do during reading. So irrespective of how old your kid is, even if you read the book or you don't read the book, it tells you things to do. It tells you what to do before the book, what to check with the kid during the reading, and what to do after the reading, and it allows you to keep an interest even if you've not read the book. Please don't go buying any stupid book and think that all books are books. No way. This is Gulliver's Travels, but this is Gulliver's Travels adapted for level 16 on the Treetops Classics. Gulliver's Travels is a heavy book, but it's been made accessible to kids. If you start from the right level and you work with the kids, amazing paint. Cutters and Crushers is actually a biology book. It teaches them about the different types of teeth. The animals who eat meat have a different kind of teeth. The ones who eat plants are different. War Children. Each book has a level. This is a stage 10 book, for example. This one, Amazing Paint, is a stage 10 book. This is a level 2 book. They are designed to look very similar to each other, but they are not the same age range. They are not the same reading technicality. There are different books to read, my dear. The choices of book needs to be made technically. It's not every book which is a book. Not every book will get you the outcomes you are after. You totally agree with me. You have one child who is into finance like you, and another who is into history and art, which you hate with a passion. But now you have done a 360 and you are learning together. Smart woman. Smart woman. We will learn together because we've never had kids like this before. It is something which is unknown to all of us. We will have to learn. The ones who are willing to learn and go on a journey with the kids will keep the kids with them on the journey. Many of us lose respect from our kids. They become disaffected because they think we are not interested. We don't manage to get the kids to see that we are in this together. And it's really important that we shift that attitude with our kids. And it starts with you doing some research. So some of you might think the reading is the same. Reading is not the same. The last time I showed you these books, some of them are like 40 quid each, depending on the age range. Sometimes you might buy a reading scheme for £1,200. And when you are paying for it, it's like money through your nose. It's expensive. It is. There's so many other things you could have done with that money. But it's a priority you place on your kids' education. It's a priority you place on your future peace of mind. It's a priority you make for investing in the kids. And it's something I want us to understand because parenting is a lifetime full job. Goodness me. And it's one which doesn't come with a manual. There's no job description. Nobody tells you all the things you have to be. But you have to be them anyway because you are in trouble if you get it wrong. So, yeah, I've got a question. I am an uneducated mother. How can I assist your son's homework? So the parents who have absolutely no idea are the kind of parents who contract me to make these lessons for them. I record it, and they sit with their kids and watch the video together. And when the mother understands, the mother explains it again to the child. So it is the mother watching with the child. The mother, being the adult, will pick it up quicker. And the mother who picks it up quicker explains it in even more simpler terms to her kid. Then you are on a journey together. I am not educated is no longer an excuse. It's a deficit, and it can be compensated for. Other people are compensating for it. People are doing great things even when they are not educated. So not being educated is not an excuse anymore. It's unacceptable. Oh yes, I will. It's probably the hardest thing we will all ever do. It's the most challenging thing I've ever done. Because most of the time, you don't even know if you're doing right or wrong. But there are some basic principles that you can apply which might help you stay on the straight and narrow, and that's what I'm hoping to share. So on these broadcasts, remember, I am not looking to be judgmental. That's not the point. I am not looking to be high and mighty. That's not the point. I am just looking to put information across as factually as possible. I want you to understand the job at hand that we are all struggling to achieve. I want you to see the little compensations other people are able to make, which makes it easier for them. What makes other people more successful and where we fall, and so we can compensate even better now that we do know. That's the point of these. I pray so, Yaba. You know, what kills me is that the people who really need to hear it will not come and watch it. But there's not much I can do about it. All I can do is put the information here and hope. Those of you who chance on it, those of you who learn from it, even if you translate it for somebody, please do. Don't hang on to the information yourself. Please be kind. Pass it on to other people. Share it to people. Talk about it in your groups. I know you have women groups, especially those of you who operate in churches and in mosques and in the other social groups. Take the video, watch it with your people, have a discussion about it. If you have questions, you know where I am. You know where I am. Yeah, but it is not true. You, for example, I know, do not need much of what I'm talking about here. You've got it in hand already. But it's people like you who will stay and watch. The The ones who haven't got it in hand might not even appreciate a word of what comes out of my mouth. So they'll be out of here in 2 seconds. I am not educated is no longer an excuse. There are some people who've never seen a classroom before, but they know, and they are taking points. They are using tools available to help their kids without them being educated. So I don't speak good English, not good enough. You can find things that teach English, so your kid can sit with you and learn the English. You don't have to be an English professor yourself. My math is not good. Doesn't matter. You can still watch it together with your kid, and you can learn alongside your kid. Don't have to be a math professor either. Whatever excuse you want to give, believe me, it's already been debunked. So don't go there with that. Look for compensations. That's what we need to look for. You didn't know that there is the examiner's report and it's accessible. I'm glad you've learned something. Because you know, when you stay on my videos, I always wonder, so what exactly is Yaba learning? What is she learning? I hate the fact that I may waste your time, but what you've just said there made my day, because at least you've picked something valuable. That's what I wish for. That's what I pray for all the time when I have the videos. I hope the people who stay and watch actually do get some benefit from it. And so you've made my day. I want to keep them short. I want to keep them snappy. So I will not extend it beyond this for today. Share the video, talk to people about it, put it in your groups for me. Ask people to subscribe, and anybody who tells you that they are not educated, cannot teach their kid, tell them to call Amma. Tell them to pay Amma to record the videos for them, and they can use those videos to teach their own kids, even when they do not know. You don't have to be an expert. There's so many things available you can do now. Even if it's bad, when you learn it's bad, you know it's bad, and you will never do it again. That is learning. Absolutely. You learn something every day. That's true. That's so true. So thank you so much for staying. Thank you so much for watching. I do pray that I know I forced you to do this in English, but I do want it to be something we share with anybody else who speaks English. This is not a community-specific problem. This is a problem we have across the migrant groups. And so I will do these in English so it becomes accessible to other people outside my very little circle of influence. Share the video for me, tell people about it. If you've not subscribed to the page, can you please make sure you subscribe, switch on the notification bell, tell other people to do the same for me, and it would be lovely to see you again. I will try, I'm off for 5 days, so I'll try and have a video each of those 5 days, focusing on a particular thing I believe might be helpful. Remember that I am focusing on kids who are getting exam ready, but it's applicable for those of you who are close to exams, so you can start getting yourself ready before the time comes. Absolute pleasure, Yaba. Absolute pleasure. Thank you for watching. See ya.